Are you working hard, helping others, and still feeling like there's never enough time, energy, or momentum to grow the way you know you're meant to? Burnout often disguises itself as a time problem when what's really missing is clarity, alignment, and the ability to cut through what's draining you. This conversation will help you see how reclaiming your focus and energy can change not only your schedule, but your entire life in practice. Stay tuned to Break Free from the Burnout. I'm your host, Dr. Anastasia, Chopelas, physicist turned energy healer. I'm here to help you make the quantum shifts to release the hidden blocks to your success. Your next breakthrough starts now. I'd like to welcome to the show Michelle Nemeyer. She's a speaker, coach, and former attorney who teaches professionals how to bend time so they can stay sharp, productive, and profitable without burning out. I can't wait to get into the bending time because this is so intriguing for me as a physicist. So after finding her way to burnout and back in her own high-performing legal career, Michelle created The Art of Bending Time, a framework that helps people connect the dots across work, life, and purpose to magnetize success and reclaim their joy. She helps businesses retain top talent, boost development, and keep their people energized and engaged, all while making the magic happen. Welcome to the show, Michelle. I'm so excited you're here, and I can't wait to talk about your topic.
Thank you, Anna.
Michelle, everyone who helps others eventually reaches a breaking point of their own. Can you take us back to your life as an attorney and share the moment when you realized something had to change?
Yeah, for me, it happened in stages. And I will tell you, I think for a lot of people who become burned out in a profession, it's not always one moment. I liken it to being like a lobster in a pot who's being cooked and you don't know you're being cooked. So over time, water's getting warmer, things feel different, and you become very detached. You can become resentful you start looking around and going, hey, wait a minute. I give everything. What am I getting back? And there was a point where giving everything was a good thing. And now all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? And I hit that point at about, I would say 20 years out of law school. I had had my own practice since I was 12 years out. So this is about 8 years into having my own law practice. I had skeletal staff. I usually had one or two part-timers working for me, but I didn't have a full-time staff. I was in an area of law that was feasible with technology. But there was a lot on me, and I was doing a lot of volunteer stuff on top of that. So wow. I was an elected member of a village council where I lived, and I was part of a group that was dealing with what could have ended up being the development of our waterfront. We didn't want development on our waterfront. So there was I had come into this politics as an activist trying to stop what could have really changed the waterfront in the area of Miami where I live. And that turned into a massively time-consuming endeavor on top of work. It was almost like having two full-time jobs. And I loved it. So it wasn't like I hated it. It wasn't like I was exhausted and felt like I was being depleted, but I was being depleted over time. And that's why I said it's more like a lobster being cooked. It's like you don't realize it until you're past that point.
Yeah,
and
totally identify with that because my own burnout, my own come to Jesus moment was very similar, where somebody said, what would you change in your life? I go, nothing. I have a great career. I have great friends. I have a great family. Like, why? Right.
Right.
And some people say the same thing with lobster. Lobsters are just thrown in. It's like the frog in the pot.
Right. Yeah. And you don't realize until it's too late that you're messing your life up in a way. You're giving up a lot. I didn't realize at the time when it was happening, but I was becoming very disengaged. And I knew I wasn't feeling that great. I always attributed that stuff to being out of shape and overweight. So
Mhm.
I tried to eat better. I exercised. I'd feel a little better because exercise matters, right? And my body felt better. My mind felt better. When my body felt better, everything ties together. And so I would go on this treadmill where my burnout was like hovering. It was kind of hovering between, I'm kind of burned out and I'm really burned out. And somewhere in the middle, I was there. So that lasted for a while, for quite a while. Ultimately, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And when I was diagnosed, I had had a family member cured pancreatic cancer with nutrition and acupuncture.
Wow.
And I was unmarried from someone who has sarcoidosis, which is also an autoimmune disease. And I had done a lot of research on his behalf. And one of the things I knew was that autoimmunity is often treated with steroids that are thrown at it. And there's no evidence that the steroids actually cure anything. And so I literally went into my first appointment with a doctor with a mindset of, if he's going to throw steroids at me, I'm telling him no. I don't know what I'm going to do about this yet. But I also had a friend who was a naturopath, and he offered me guidance in at least getting to, I did about 6 months of mostly raw foods diet, nutritional enzymes, digestive enzymes, all that kind of stuff. I did that ultimately under the supervision of a hepatologist I found, because my disease was a liver disease. I found a hepatologist who trained in Brazil, so she was not trained by Big Pharma. She was willing to listen when I said, listen, I want to try to deal with this with nutrition before I take any drug. Because the disease I have, there is a drug that they can give for it. Ultimately, it turned out it is necessary for me, but I went through 6 months of trying to fix it with diet before we ultimately put me on that. Thankfully, I responded well. 40% of the people who have the disease don't, and it doesn't help them.
Mhm.
But, it did work for me, which means that it clears out blockages in the already damaged bile ducts. So there's two parts. There's the damage and there's the clearing out so that the bile can still move. I decided to go to a health coaching school that focused on functional and holistic kind of medical treatments to learn about how do you deal with autoimmunity outside of the standard.
Yeah.
I learned all this stuff, the general things that you do when you're treating with nutrition, with exercise, with sleeping right, with mindset, with all those things that we do in the holistic world. And I've applied all of those in addition to that medication. And I had stage 2 level damage to my liver, which has reversed to stage 0.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
but
Awesome.
along with that result, which is amazing, and I'm thrilled because, I really don't want to die or have a transplant, I also realized my burnout went away. And I was happy again, and I felt alive, and I felt great. And I was like, okay, what are the things that I've done? Because this happened over about a 5-6 year period.
Yeah, and were you still being a lawyer through that whole time?
Yes.
Mhm.
I stopped practicing law about a year and a half ago. I wound out to my last case, and that last case took a really long time to end because it started in COVID and it ended with a law firm that didn't want to give up on the other side. So, but it finally ended, and it ended well. So at the end of that, I do this full time, but I started learning that for myself. I really wasn't learning it, planning on turning it into a business. But what I realized was what I had to offer people was such a big deal that there are so many professionals like me who, before I became that lobster in the pot, I didn't know to do these things that could have protected me from probably getting that autoimmune disease triggered.
Yeah, in fact, when I
And
talk to people who, because I do a lot of energy healing work, but I work holistically on,
Mhm.
including nutrition and exercise and sleep and the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So when I talk to young people and they go, Anastasia, you're really cool, but I don't know why I'd want to work with you. And I go, well, do you have any health issues right now? Not really. And I said, yeah, do you want to keep it that way?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And the
And
thing is that people, unless there's a need, from my experience, unless there's a need, they're not going to look.
right.
Right.
And my come to Jesus moment was having a doctor tell me that I had a disease that if I was one of the 40% who wasn't helped by this drug, now there's something else out there, but there wasn't then. If I was one of that 40%, the expectation was that I wouldn't live more than 10 years without a transplant.
Wow.
So, obviously that's like, whoa, what do I do? And that stopped me in my tracks in a way that, probably a cancer diagnosis would do for someone, or having that heart attack and having to change their lifestyle, but it's for a lot of people, it takes that. And, I had thought I was doing the things I needed to fix these problems before, when I was just eating differently and exercising, but that isn't the whole picture.
No, it's
And I
not
didn't
enough.
realize it.
Yeah.
I didn't know until I got the education I got about how much goes into, how much massive mindset change, for instance, goes into being able to manage your stress.
Yeah.
I didn't think I had stress. I didn't know what it felt like not to have stress.
Yeah. My mom gave me a postcard that was just like a little comic thing, and it had a profile of a person where you could see the skull, and they had all of these springs all holding it together, and it says, "Don't tell me to relax. It's my tension that's holding me together."
Yeah. And you know what? For me, it was my workaholism.
Yes.
So I had a really challenging home life in my marriage. That isn't my marriage anymore. I had a really challenging home life. And the way I held it together was I held it together at work. And that was how I held myself together at home, I was the strong one who never broke.
Yep.
And the minute that marriage ended, I fell apart. Like, not because I was devastated about losing him, because I had been holding it together for so long.
Yeah.
When
And your body just said, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. Now I can.
Yeah. And that was really, in a way, that was when the burnout got really bad, because I hadn't realized, like, I'd been using that working all the time as a way to protect myself, but I was still burning myself out working all the time.
Yes, exactly. And I tell people now I can't stop and rest. And I go, well, rest is a verb. You're doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they go, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Yeah. There are people who get very uncomfortable about not doing something. It's like sin.
My ex-husband, that's like yours, it was a lot like that. I'd say, you never relax. So he sits down for a minute or two. He goes, I'm relaxing now. Okay, it's enough.
Yeah. I'm done. I'm bored. I'm going to clean the garage or who knows what. But anyway, so that's how I ended up learning about this.
Yes. And what does this have to do with the art of bending time?
Okay, so when I looked back at what happened, why am I now feeling different? Why am I now engaged, excited about my job again? I mean, I had gotten really burned out, and now I was engaged in it. I was really doing well. I was excited about it. I was really on top of my game again, and I was healthy. So I looked at it and I said, what are all the things I've done? And I literally sat down and wrote like a scatter chart where I just wrote down all of my ideas about, here's all the things. And I started categorizing them into buckets, so to speak. And then I said, okay, here's the buckets of the things that I've done. What did I think was wrong? When I first started noticing something was going on that wasn't right, that kind of felt like, something was going on with work that wasn't right. And what I realized was I bought a time management course because I thought that I wasn't focused and like organized. That wasn't really true. I had been able to succeed as a lawyer for 20 years up to that point without a time management course. I had gotten, done all the things, but for some reason I was spinning my wheels. I was reading the same paragraph 10 different times before I could finally digest it. And I was like, what is going on with time? Why am I not getting anything done? And that was when I got a time management course. That was before the diagnosis and all that. But that was the first time that I kind of noticed like something's off. And I don't know I don't know what to do about it. So when I realized like people who are burned out are like a lobster who don't know they're burned out. And I said, who am I? Like, who was I when I was that person when I could have been helped by it? Like when I could have intervened and done something that would have made a difference early on, I realized that my concern was time. My concern wasn't about health. It wasn't about my marriage. It wasn't about my caseload. I didn't realize I was being burned out by what I was doing. I looked for a time course, which is why I decided to focus on time in the way that I created this framework, because I'm targeting the people like I was back then who think that they can't handle time because they're not getting stuff done that they need to get done. But really, it's probably not that.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of times when you look at the list of things that you have to do, you'll feel, at least for me, I felt overwhelmed. And because like I would put all of the stuff I needed to organize in my office in a box next to me, and then it would pile up. And then I'd look at it and I go, oh man, I don't really want to organize it. But I said, okay, I'll just do the first quarter of it. And then as soon as I got into it, it didn't feel so bad. It's always the anticipation of having to do it rather than the doing of it. For me, anyway.
That can be part of it, but the part of it is when you're burned out, you're not focused. When you lack focus, you can't do what you just said.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You literally become incapable of it. And what I came up with was, here's all the stuff I did that helped me. And this is where the phrase bending time comes from. Everybody has the same number of hours in the day, minutes in an hour, all that, right? That's the linear part.
Yes.
But imagine that you've got this ruler. I'm going to show you. The people who are listening, I'm holding up a ruler. The people on TV can see that I have a ruler. So if you took this ruler and you put a balloon around it and you blew up that balloon, you're expanding a container around the ruler. That's what bending time is, really. It's about expanding what you can get in the same linear time, whether that's a year, 5 years, 10 minutes. It's finding a way to get more done in the same amount of time.
So you're moving from linear to 3D space.
Essentially, yes. Yes. And you're doing that through approaches like, for instance, anybody who exercises regularly and then stops and gets sluggish from stopping knows that when you get your little workout in every day, even if it's not an hour or two, a little workout in every day, you have a level of energy that's different. You get more done when you have that level of energy that's different. You're more able to sustain that flow state. You're more able to be on. If you're eating healthier, there are foods you can eat that make you sluggish. I mean, to the point of brain fog for some people, but that kind of thing.
Yeah, for me, it's grains. Grains. Don't touch grains. I don't eat any grains or pseudo grains or anything grain-like because I stay much more alert.
Yeah.
And it also instigates autoimmune problems for a lot of people. And for me, I'm one of them.
Right. Yeah. And if you do have that instigated, you can also have brain fog.
Yes.
Exactly. You have brain fog. When you spend half an hour looking for your keys before you leave for your meeting, that's not an effective use of time.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, I hate that.
But that happens to a lot of people. We have this family joke, literally this running joke in my family that there are people in my family that all they do is look for their keys and their glasses. Like, it's because it's just constant. It's just a complete waste of time. And we all, we all have those moments once in a while, but for some people it's more than just a moment. It's a lot. It's every day.
Yeah. That's
So
why I try to put
things,
them in the same place every time, so I never look for them. They're there.
yeah. So we have those ways of dealing with it. And then there are ways we can dealing with interruptions. And I have a character I use when I teach classes. I call the character Time Suck Ninja. Time Suck Ninja has a sword, and Time Suck Ninja helps to eliminate what I call internal and external time sucks. Internal ones are things like self-soothing habits. When you don't feel like picking up the phone and making that call, you might pick up your phone and scroll social media. You might play a game. Many years ago, I had a law partner who I knew he was stressed out every time when I walked in his office and I saw him playing Tetris. He always played Tetris on his computer. Another one checked his stocks like it was a drug. He was always looking and checking his stocks, turning on the news. Brainless stuff that just it's a way to avoid what you want to do. And all of a sudden you get sucked down the rabbit hole. And the next thing you know, it's an hour later and you haven't done anything except that thing you were doing to avoid what you needed to do. External time sucks can be other people. It can be other people if you work in an office environment. It can be a boss with a habit of showing up at 5 o'clock with the project that's due the next morning. It could be, or people hovering in the doorway. I had an office in a law firm across from the kitchen. Everybody wanted to come say hi to me. And, it was like, it got to the point where I put a computer on a credenza behind me and I worked at the credenza, not my desk, so that when I was really focused, my back was to the door and people they'd see that they didn't want to interrupt me. Because the firm had this stated open door culture. And there was sort of almost an assumption that if your door was closed, you must be looking for a job, or you weren't working, or who knows what. They just encouraged, like, people open their doors. So that was a way I found that helped me with that. I've had environments where the sun was in my eyes. And the only way to deal with that, I invested in good quality blinds for a home office that every day I was 2:30 in the afternoon, like clockwork. I couldn't work anymore at my desk. That kind of situation, those types of environmental impacts, it could be noise. It could be other people in your household if you work remotely. Whatever those things are, you have to find ways to deal with them. And sometimes we don't think about them. We don't consider that that's costing us half hour, 45 minutes, an hour a day of our time just because we keep being interrupted.
Yeah, it's like also emails, another one.
The first thing I tell everybody is to delete their notifications, all of them. I don't have any notifications on my computer. I had somebody call me just last week and was like, well, didn't you see my email? I emailed you 2 hours ago. I'm like, I don't look at my email except like once a day.
Yeah.
If you want to reach me, you can text me and once in a while, I'll take a peek and I'll see that sooner, but I'm not going to look at that if I'm in the middle of something either.
Yeah, my daughter will say, did you see my text? No.
Yeah. So, basically you want to pare that stuff down. That's another, use the sword, right? Then what I have them do is, and this is where the sword comes in, literally, I have a tool I call a sword analysis where we go through goal setting.
Yeah.
And the sword analysis is an analysis of you look at the goal. I typically, if I'm coaching someone, it's a personal, a business, and whatever other goal you want. And these are big 3 to 5 year goals. And I have them create this goal list and say, okay, here's the big goal. What are my strengths? What do I already have toward that goal?
Mm-hmm.
What are my weaknesses? Do I need money? Do I need to learn something? Do I need to bring people into a team? Whatever the weaknesses are. What are the opportunities the goal is going to bring me? Is it worth it? Why is it worth it? What am I getting from this? And the risks, and if it's a business school analysis, they call it threats. I learned this from a Venezuelan. In Spanish, it's riesgos. What are the risks? The risks are, what's the opportunity cost? Am I giving up something in my life that matters to me to pursue this goal? And what matters more? At the end of that analysis, I have people say, okay, the D is for desire. How much do you want it? People come to me with their biggest goals. These are things they've been carrying around. And it breaks my heart sometimes because they've been carrying this around. Sometimes their self-esteem is tied to it and they haven't reached it. Sometimes they're spending money, they're spending time, they're losing time with their families, and they're losing the opportunity to do fun things. And when we get down to it and I say, how much do you want at 1 to 10? They were like, oh, I don't know, maybe a 6.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm like, why are you doing this? Oh, well, everyone in my family has a master's degree. Or they taught us in school that the only way you can succeed in this career is to do this and then this and then this. And yet they've surpassed that level of achievement and they're still trying to do step B because they were told they should, not because it was necessary for them.
Yeah. We call that shoulding all over yourself.
Exactly. So that's the sword. And the reason I call it the sword, and in a sense it's an acronym, but in a sense it's a weapon to get rid of these really wasteful goals we drag around like Santa's bag on our back.
Exactly.
Then we go on from that and we build a team and we build a growth plan based on that. And here's where the dot connecting and
So this is my energetic sword. It's a mineral, right? And we just chop. So you have a thought going to something and just chop it away.
Beautiful.
Right? It works great. We call it cutting the bird. It's a line of energy that, thinking about, I don't really want to go out. It's kind of drizzly out. I don't want to go out and walk.
Yeah.
And then you get up and go. I did that this morning, actually.
His rain is fine.
Well, I just took my umbrella.
Yeah. I did that yesterday. So long story short, that's the system. And the system gets you to a point where when you've created these SWOT analyses for multiple goals, they layer together. I'll give you an example. Let's say I'll use a lawyer because that's my career, and you want to be better at trial work, which means you have to have better speaking skills. And you haven't had a lot of that in your life. They're great at law school, not teaching you what you need to know to do the job. And they teach you the theory behind the job, but there's a lot of skills that sometimes get lost in the shuffle. So let's say you really want to be able to be a true trial lawyer. You want to go out there and be able to speak and engage and do all that. You also are looking for a way to connect with people in your community because you've moved to someplace new. You don't know a lot of people. You don't have much of a social life because you're working 100 hours a day. So you want to do both these things. What about taking an improv course? All of a sudden now you're not taking like speaking for lawyers where you're stuck in a group of lawyers talking about law and talking about your cases or taking a class in a college. You're putting yourself in a social setting with probably a variety of fun people. You're learning a skill in a way that's going to help you engage with real people, not just academics, not just other lawyers. And you're doing it in the same hour that you might have spent in a classroom. If somebody said, take a speech class or take a whatever it might be, but you're doing it in a way it's killing two birds with one stone, so to speak, in your time.
So it's a creative and fun way to achieve your goals instead of having to go through in what I can imagine is torture of being with a bunch of other lawyers and then having them judge you talking and so on. I know that teaching is a skill. I mean, speaking is a skill that is just simply not taught in any schools. Just simply
It
not
isn't
done.
in most schools. I
Like
actually,
as a academic, right? When I went through, I studied chemistry, physical chemistry, geochemistry, and became a physics professor. And you have to speak a lot. You have to relay your research to your peers. You have to get
right.
up in front of a classroom and be clear about what you're saying. And a lot of professors are horrible speakers. And
And yeah, and they
they
don't give you, there's not instruction on how to engage an
exactly right.
audience, for instance. Yeah, for
And
sure.
and
And
and a lot of scientists tend to be extremely introverted. And
mhm,
so they don't even really want to be speaking.
right.
Because I remember when I was doing my classes were 75 to 200 people. I had big lecture halls full of people. I seldom had small classes. And when I did my first classes, I'd do the class and all these students would be in there. And then I'd go sit in my office and have my head on my desk like this, trying to get my energy back because I'm a severe introvert. And introverts have a lot of difficulty being in crowds because the energy of the other people pull at us.
I
So
am one of those too. I get
yeah,
you.
yeah. So I talked to some of the other people, like what their first experiences speaking was like for them, and they said the same thing because a lot of them are introverts and don't really enjoy being in front of a big crowd and speaking about stuff. So,
Well, you know what's interesting is there's also a lot of introverts who are very good at that because they can kind of isolate. They're not in the crowd. They're separate from the crowd. It's more like performance almost.
yeah, it
Uh,
it depends on whether you're an empath or not. Like I'm an empath, so being
yeah.
empathic, it's more difficult. Highly sensitive people, they're basically the same thing, have the same difficulty. I'm in a program right now where she's an extreme case and she can
Mhm.
barely get words out and she's trying to be a coach. So that'll be interesting to see how she evolves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So
So that's the art of bending time. The idea is that you take these various factors, and the other piece I didn't talk about, and it's the first thing, is clarity. We talked beforehand about alignment. So first thing I do is I have people get clarity about who they are and what lights them up.
yep. And sometimes
And
that's hard to find for people.
it can be very hard to find. And
Yeah.
but we work on that if I'm working one-on-one with people, we work on it to get to that. What is it that lights you up? What is it that you're missing? If you feel like you're dying inside, what's gone that you need because you had it once? And it may be something that as children we loved. One thing I've seen is in our educational system, people are punished for being smart.
Yes.
If
Yeah,
if you're an
definitely.
if you're an A student, they take away art and they take away music and they take away this and they take away that so that you can take the harder math class and the harder science class and the this and the that, right? And for a lot of us, I was somebody who loved, first of all, I'm very physical. So I loved moving my body.
Yep.
I was always in a sport. I wasn't that into the gym classes, but I was always in a sport in high school. Then I get into college. And I was actually redshirted and I couldn't compete. So I dropped out of swimming and sports ended for me. I started running after that, but I was no longer in sports. I loved art. I hit a point I had to drop art classes because I didn't have time to do art and also take Spanish and also take the other advanced classes I was taking.
Yeah.
And I think that happens to a lot of people. So they give up those things that light them up. They pack on more and more of the stuff that's the grind, that's not fun, that's hard. And yes, they're moving toward a career that's supposedly great, but that just gives them more of it. They keep going deeper and deeper into this hole they're digging for themselves.
Well, and then
But
look at the both of us. We've moved from very high-powered careers into something that's really squishy and touchy-feely and
yeah,
emotional. And so your career, even though you grinded so hard for so long on it, you were willing to give it up.
yeah. In the long run, I was. A lot of people never will because they don't have the mindset where they feel comfortable being able to walk away from a
Yeah.
lucrative career to do something that's a gamble in their mind, right? This is exciting and interesting and different and not a guarantee, like
No,
a real job, right?
but it's
So
so
what
much
happens
more
is,
satisfying. Oh my
yeah.
God.
So what happens is these people, they lose sense of those things. But you can get little glimmers of those sparks that light you up. You can proactively find them in your life. You can keep that professional job and the salary that comes with it. And you can still make a point of getting those things in your life if you proactively make a point of doing it. But
Yes,
you have to know it.
exactly. And that's
You have-
actually alignment right there is what
yes,
lights you
exactly.
up. You it makes things very easy. And we're talking earlier about flow state. When you do
Yes.
something that lights you up, and it doesn't have to be touchy feely. It could be something some people like numbers and doing numbers lights them
Right.
up, right? And
And they get in the flow state for hours. And
yeah,
other people want to beat themselves over the head with a frying pan when they're doing numbers.
yeah.
Um,
And some people love to do computer programming like me. I love to create websites and all of that. And that, of course, is not a good use of my time because I have other talents that are equally as satisfying, but I can sit in front of a computer for hours programming. And I love doing it. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I started in 1972 and was hooked ever since. So,
yeah.
so it doesn't have to be touchy-feely. It just has to light you up somehow.
It
And
has to
then,
be something that lights you up. And every job has elements. I could work in any job under the sun. I could be a garbage collector and I could find things that light me up if I look for those things while I'm doing
exactly,
that job.
exactly.
And so
That's a brilliant statement right there. I love that statement.
that's the groundwork for everything that I have people do is finding that first and then working that into all the stuff because really you don't have to quit your job. You can excel at your job. You're going to be way better at your job because of the fact that you're doing things that light you up, that make you efficient, that make you productive and make you happier while you're doing it.
Excellent. I love that. And I'm sure that that's a great closing place. So, how can people find you?
So the best place to find me is online. I have a website and it is www.theartofbendingtime.com.
Oh, that's a great, it's better than trying to spell a name.
Right. You won't have to spell Nemeyer. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
have a,
used to have AnastasiaChopelas.com, but nobody can spell that.
I I have always had trouble with when I started my law practice, I called it my website was paymyclaim.com. And the reason was because I was like, nobody's going to know how to spell my name. They're not going to remember my name. Why would I have that as the domain? And I do have that as the domain for one aspect of my business. You use that email, I believe. But I just recently created a new website with the Art of Bending Time because that has become the way I've gone in my business. That's really the direction I'm going. And that's the program that I'm focusing on.
And then Michelle, people spell it all kinds of different ways.
Yeah. And
Two
Niemeyer,
L's.
forget about it.
Oh,
It's
it's
the problem.
German.
Niemeyer is a German name and it's spelled correctly in German, but Americans hear that sound and think Neiman Marcus. And they've seen
Oh,
it spelled Nei, which is Neiman Marcus is a made up word. It's not that Neiman, it's not a name.
oh, that's
Um,
yeah.
and it's
If it
not,
were German, it'd be
so
pronounced "nie," not "knee."
exactly nay, it would be nay. And so the, that's how that comes out. Like they spell it NEI because they think that that's how it's spelled, because that's what they're accustomed to seeing for that sound.
Oh,
You know,
that's so funny.
yeah.
Yeah, that's really funny. So thank you,
So the other
Michelle.
thing actually, and this is just real quick, if they
Okay.
text the word clarity to 33777, they can get to a little community page that gives them access to a guided meditation and journaling prompts I have for the clarity discovery.
Oh, I'm going
So
to
that
try
could be
that.
very helpful to people, is to look for that clarity to 33777.
Yeah, and I'll be sure and put that in the show notes so they'll have
Yeah.
it. I'll have everything in the show notes to make sure that they can connect to you, because your ideas, it's like a whole different way of looking at time management and
Yeah.
how to get rid of those bugs, the way if you sit down and write what you do all day, and a lot of people will discover that they're just spending time doing things that aren't productive or aren't leading to, like, I don't know how to get my business off the ground.
Definitely.
Yeah, and end up, instead of looking at what's going to generate revenue and what's going to light them up so they want to do it that way, it's
Right.
it's going to be a game changer for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Michelle, for this very enlightening and fun conversation. I'm sure that a lot of people are going to get a lot of interesting new ideas from it.
Thank you.
What a refreshing and powerful conversation. Michelle reminds us that reclaiming your time is not about squeezing more into your day. It's about getting clear on what matters, cutting away what drains you, and building a life that energizes rather than depletes you. Be sure to connect with Michelle at theartofbendingtime.com and check the show notes for her clarity resource and the text link she mentioned. If this episode gave you a new way to think about burnout, time, and alignment, please share it with a friend, leave a 5-star review or a thumbs up rating, and subscribe so you don't miss another episode. When you're ready to bring more harmony and alignment to your relationships, check out my free 5-step relationship healing protocol at scientifichealer.com/relationship. Thank you for listening to Break Free from the Burnout. Resources and show notes are available at www.breakfreefromtheburnout.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Anastasia Chopelas, sending you golden healing light and success vibes to becoming aligned, confident, and prosperous. Your gifts are so needed in this world.